Hare Krishna everyone, welcome back to the reading of Teachings of Lord Chaitanya by His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are continuing chapter number 3 and I'm sorry the quality of this recording is a little bit lower because our mic died. I mean it stopped working, it happens, it's been a long time since we've been using it, so let's see. Maybe we'll be able to fix it. Maybe we'll ship it to America. Anyway, so we are continuing to read third chapter, Teachings to Sanatana Goswami. Yes, and this is Shravanam Diaries podcast. I'm your host, Sulalita Devidasi. So, yesterday we established that the last instruction of the Bhagavad Gita is that the spirit soul should surrender completely unto the Supreme Soul, Kṛṣṇa, and in that way realize happiness. Here also, Lord Chaitanya, answering the questions of Sanatan, repeats the same truth. There is a difference, however. Here the Lord Chaitanya, does not give the information about the spirit soul that is already described in the Bhagavad Gita. Rather, he begins from the point where Kṛṣṇa ended his instruction. It is accepted by great devotees that Lord Kṛṣṇa is Kṛṣṇa himself, and as such, he begins his instruction to Sanatana from the point where he ended his instructions to Arjuna in the Gita. Quote, "Your constitutional position is that you are pure, living soul." The Lord told Sanatana, "Your material body is not your real self, nor is your mind your real identity, nor your intelligence, nor your false ego. Your identity is that of an eternal servitor of the Supreme Lord, Kṛṣṇa. Your position is that you are transcendental. The superior energy of Kṛṣṇa is spiritual in constitution, and the inferior, external energy is material. Since you are between the material energy and the spiritual energy, your position is marginal. Belonging to the marginal potency of Kṛṣṇa, you are simultaneously one with and different from him. Because you are spirit, you are not different from Kṛṣṇa. But because you are only a minute particle of Kṛṣṇa, you are different from him." Yes, so the difference is in measurement. There is non-difference whatsoever, but the measurement, you have to be able to measure. But because you are only a minute particle of Kṛṣṇa, minute, and you are different from him. This simultaneous oneness and difference always exists in the relationship between the living entities and the spirit soul. From the fact that the living entities are always in the marginal position, this conception of simultaneously one and different can be understood. The living entity is just like a molecular particle of sunshine, whereas Kṛṣṇa is like the blazing sun itself. Lord Chaitanya also compared the living entities to sparks in a fire, and the Supreme Lord to the blazing fire itself. In this connection, the Lord cited a verse from the Vishnu Purana 1.22.53. Ekadesha sthitasya agner jyotsna vistarini yatha parasya brahmanah shaktis tathedam akhilam jagat. Quote, "Everything manifested within this cosmic world is but the energy of the Supreme Lord. As fire, situated in one place, spreads its illumination and heat all around, so the Lord, although situated in one place in the spiritual world, manifests his different energies everywhere. Indeed, the whole cosmic creation is but a manifestation of his various energies." Wow. So, Lord Chaitanya continued citing the Vishnu Purana 6.7.61. The Supreme Lord's original energy is transcendental and spiritual, and the living entities are part and parcel of that energy. There is a third energy, however, called the material energy, which is covered by the cloud of ignorance." Unquote. This energy, which is material nature, is divided into 3 modes, or gunas: goodness, passion, and ignorance. Lord Chaitanya then quoted another verse from the Vishnu Purana 1.3.2 to the effect that all inconceivable energies reside in the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and that the whole cosmic manifestation acts due to those energies. The Lord also said that the living entity is known as the Kshetragya, or the knower of the field of activities. This is confirmed in the 13th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, where Kṛṣṇa describes the body as the field of activities and the living entity as the Kshetragya, the knower of that field. This actually reminded me of how I was very, very sick some time ago, some years ago, many years ago actually. And I was very sick, and some devotees, because when we are sick, it's not only that we need to take medicines. Many times we also need to take spiritual medicines, like in Chaitanya Charitamrita, it's described how devotees, they were able to cure any disease just by touching the Lord or just by chanting Hare Krishna. Like, we're not on that level, but we should definitely always keep in touch with the Supreme Lord, no matter how sick we are. So, no matter how sick we are, at all times, at all circumstances. So, one time, like these very nice devotees, they kind of gave advice to read 13th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita repeatedly. And some devotees say just read the translation, some devotees say just read the Sanskrit because the soul will understand, because Sanskrit is the language of the Devatas and our spirit soul, because we're part and parcel of Kṛṣṇa, we're supposed to. It's deep inside. We know Sanskrit deep inside. So, yes, so they recommended me reading this chapter, and it was such a powerful healing experience for me, honestly. I was just very, very... I found kind of inner, you can say, stability, confidence, and enthusiasm. This 13th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, because it speaks about Kshetragya, knower of the field. I don't know, for me this chapter is magical. So, I have special relationship with this chapter. Okay. Although the living entity is constitutionally conversant with the spiritual energy, or has the potency to understand it, He is covered by the material energy and consequently believes himself to be the body. That's the biggest problem, isn't it? Okay. This false identification is called false ego. Deluded by the false ego, the bewildered living entity in material existence passes through different bodies and suffers various kinds of miseries. Knowledge of the living entity's true position is possessed to different extents by different types of living entities. In other words, it is to be understood that the living entity is part and parcel of the spiritual energy of the Supreme Lord. Because the material energy is inferior, man has the ability to get free from the covering of this material energy and utilize the spiritual energy. Haribo! We should all utilize the spiritual energy properly. It is stated in the Bhagavad Gita that in the conditioned state, the superior energy, the living entity, is covered by the inferior energy. Due to this covering, the living entity is subjected to the miseries of the material world, and in proportion to how much he is covered, he suffers material miseries. Those who are a little enlightened suffer less, but on the whole, everyone is subjected to material miseries due to being covered by the material energy. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also quoted from the 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, in which it is stated that earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego all combine to form the inferior energy of the Supreme Lord. But the superior energy is the real identity of the living being. And it is because of that energy that the whole material world functions. The cosmic manifestation, which is made of the material elements, has no power to act unless it is moved by the superior energy, the living entity. The conditioned life of the living entity is due to forgetfulness of his relationship with the Supreme Lord in the superior energy. When that relationship is forgotten, conditioned life is the result. Only when a man receives his real identity as the eternal servitor to the Lord does he become liberated. Haribo! We have completed 3rd chapter. So fast. And tomorrow we shall read chapter number 4, entitled The Wise Man. Jai. So actually this last portion reminded me of how my mom, who is presently sitting in the room chanting Hare Krishna, she always says, it's like, if I say that, oh, this is very uncomfortable for me, my mom says, uncomfortable is to sit on the ceiling because the blanket falls off. So many times we have some, problems in life and sufferings, like within our minds and within our bodies, and that's just because we can't really talk to one another, because we feel uncomfortable confessing about something, or negotiating something, or communicating about something. Communication, negotiation, two different things. And because of that, we feel like there's like mental agony, there's like physical, it goes into physical, it goes into spiritual disease, meaning like we're not able to do our spiritual practice properly. But all in all, ultimately, it all boils down to the fact that we realize who we are, and we realize that who is the Lord, and we realize that we have this wonderful opportunity to engage all of our faculties everything that we have in his service, and we can do that, and we can also help our friends to do that, help everyone to do that, and that's what we should do. So this is very, very important. So tomorrow we shall begin chapter number 4, The Wise Man. Thank you so much for tuning in. The link to this book is in the description, and we shall see you tomorrow. Hare Krishna.